Next question. The federal government is sabotaging the Affordable Health Care Act. How do you plan to expand Medicaid? We'll begin with Jeff Duncan.
Well, a lot of us talked about the ways to expand Medicaid already in our answers, and I think it's obviously a must. I want to take a moment to express some personal feelings about an issue that I've learned a lot about. We joke about me being a former Republican, but there's an issue that's really near and dear to me, and a couple of issues I didn't get right. One of those was abortion. Part of this infant maternity mortality rate is based upon a law that's in place. And I was wrong as the lieutenant governor to think a room full of legislators knew better than millions of women. They don't. When I started to hear the very difficult medical stories, the difficult personal situations, beyond a shadow of a doubt, women deserve the right to choose between themselves, their faith, their family, and their doctors. And day one as governor, I will sign an executive order that clarifies doctors can practice medicine without fear of prosecution, and we will repeal the 6-week ban, I assure you.
Next, Jason Estevez.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not something that I joke about because the failure to expand Medicaid has cost Georgians over the last 15 years. In fact, Georgia has lost out on $30 billion because Republicans, former or current, refuse to listen to experts and instead play politics with your lives. $30 billion. That's over $7,000 per taxpayer in this state. Not only that, this fight is personal for me. My mom, who has Alzheimer's, and I've been her caregiver for the last 10 years, fell into the Medicaid gap. While Jeff was a state rep and lieutenant governor, and while Republicans worked together to block this legislation, my mom did not have health insurance. And because of the failure in leadership, people like her missed out on appointments, missed out on medications, and hospitals closed. We need a governor that listens to experts, that doesn't play politics, and shows leadership. And as governor, I'm going to make sure that we expand Medicaid, but I also want to make sure that we bolster and strengthen our Affordable Care Act. And there's a blueprint for doing that. I dropped legislation, SB 192, that does exactly that. Especially when the federal government fails, it's up to the state to fill in that gap.
Derek Jackson.
So yes, this is a personal matter. In fact, my first wife that I was with for 31 years died of breast cancer. That's the reason why I got into politics. And when I think about where she was battling this, for her life, doctors were not listening. And in that same year, in 2014, Governor Deal made it difficult for future governors in Georgia to expand Medicaid. He surrendered the power of the governorship to the Georgia General Assembly. But here's the other thing, because tonight, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear a lot of folks talking about they got 1,000 plans on their website. But they didn't stick around in the Georgia General Assembly to introduce legislation. We got to make sure, because this year, it's not just about, applause lines and how many programs you have on your website. My 300 bills that I introduced or co-sponsor, we'll be ready on day one because I've been there for 10 years. And the only other person up here that's been under that gold dome for 10 years is Jeff Duncan. And we had some battles, right? But we got to be careful because some folks will tell you one thing today and something tomorrow. My wife is from Albany, Georgia. And when she was a state representative down there in Albany, Georgia, her one and only hospital serviced 40 counties. That's the reason why in 2020, 40,000 Georgians died. Because we continue to make sure that we don't give you the health care that you need under that gold dome. And as Governor Derek Jackson, I will exercise the same thing I did as a Commander Jackson. I will leave no one behind. We will bring all resources to bear to keep you alive, because no death certificate should have preventable death. None. Thank you.
Rua Roman.
Thank you. I was deeply lucky to grow up in a household where we didn't really, worry about where our next meal was going to come from. But healthcare was always the thing that worried all of us. In fact, one time I got really sick as a kid, and my parents were really worried about where exactly they could take me because of the terrible health insurance that we had. And when we talk about how do you expand Medicaid, because that was the question is my job as a state rep since the day I got there was to whip votes. I'm not whipping anybody for real. That's just a fancy way of saying my job was to count the votes and talk to everybody, Republicans and Democrats. And that's how I know we have the coalition to pass Medicaid expansion, because we almost did it. And one person destroyed that effort, the governor. And that's why it feels like so much what we're trying to do is tell folks, hey, it's time to raise our standards, because yes, if we flip the governor's mansion, we will expand Medicaid. The question is, what comes after that? Because it's been so long since we've been trying to do this that it's like putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. What comes after that? I will tell y'all, the governor did get his power back to be able to pilot programs. That's how he piloted his Disastrous Pathways program that has spent 2 to 3 times as much money on corporations and consultants as it did on actually covering people. That's why if I'm governor, I want to use that same power to pilot a universal healthcare program, one that will lead the country. I mean it when I say we can have the vision to actually raise our rank when it comes to literacy and when it comes to healthcare. Thank you.
Michael Thurmond.
I've been in politics a few years. Promises, performance. As your next governor, I will expand Medicaid in the first year. What's going to have to happen that we don't want to talk about is that we must be able to build a winning coalition in order to do it. We will reform Medicaid from the inside out. We will build a coalition of white and black, Hispanic and Asian, urban, rural, suburban, Republicans and Democrats to get this done, not for political purposes, but because it's the right thing to do. People are dying unnecessary deaths. People are sick with preventable diseases because Georgia has not expanded Medicaid. Rural Georgia is suffering greatly. We could have generated 60,000 additional jobs in this state with the expansion of Medicaid. 6,000 of those jobs would have been created in rural Georgia. I can't do it unless you give me the opportunity to do it. I have not let you down, and I will not let you down. Tough jobs do not scare Mike Thurmond. We will get this job done. Look, expanding Medicaid and having access to health care, that's not a black thing or a white thing. It's the right thing. Expanding Medicaid, providing food for hungry children, not a black thing, white thing, or a Republican thing. It's the right thing for us to do, and I'll get the job done if you give me the opportunity.
Keisha Lance Bottoms.
Even before the big ugly bill, 300,000 Georgians were without health care coverage because Georgia refused to expand Medicaid. We left $700 million on the table. We created a disastrous program called Georgia Pathways that has failed miserably. 9 rural hospitals have closed in the state. On day one, I will sign an executive order to prepare our state agencies for Medicaid expansion. Also, there's a great amount of influence that comes from the office of the governor. The governor sets the priorities for this state. I will immediately ask the legislature to consider legislation to expand Medicaid in this state. This is a bipartisan issue that can and will receive bipartisan support. If you don't believe me, ask Marjorie Taylor Greene. At the point that she discusses health care coverage, you know that this is a crisis that transcends party lines, it transcends community lines. People ask, if I don't have Medicaid, then why should I care? If you've ever gone 7585 north or south, east or west on 20, you have likely gone through one of these communities that a hospital has closed in. If, God forbid, you have an accident or need access to health care, you may be more than an hour away. It is an emergency that must be addressed on day one.
Olu Brown.
So in Georgia, 2 million people depend on Medicaid and Peach Care. That's 1 in 5 Georgians who depend on that critical resource. This is something we can fix. And as your next governor, I have handled tough issues by bringing together coalitions of people who think differently, who believe differently, who act differently to come up with a solution that represents the best for the people we serve. And that's what we will do for Medicaid. And in my first year, we will expand Medicaid so that individuals in Georgia will not have to do without healthcare insurance. But here's another note, because it's not only Medicaid, it's also addressing the high cost of healthcare premiums currently. On March the 4th, in my personal bank account, there will be a debit that is more than our family's mortgage for our healthcare premium. These aren't statistics that somebody gave me. As a person running for governor, I am living what you're living. That's why I can represent you in the governor's mansion, because you won't have to convince me of the need. I understand it every single day. So as governor, I will introduce the Premium Relief Fund, which will use our $14 billion surplus to lower insurance premiums by 15% day one for all Georgians. We can't wait for the Gold Dome to get it together. We can't wait for Washington. You have to have a governor who acts on your behalf right now because he understands what you're going through.
Next question. The FBI recently raided the Fulton County Board of Elections, seizing 2020 ballots. At the same time, ICE presence near polling locations has raised fears of voter intimidation or even election disruption. As governor, what immediate actions will you take to protect our local boards of elections and prevent the cancellation of an election? We'll start with Michael Thurmond.
It's not a hypothetical question. In 2020, at the time that the State Board of Elections were attempting to investigate Fulton County, they were also attempting to investigate DeKalb County. So we fought back every step of the way to ensure that, number one, everyone's right to cast a fair and free ballot will be protected. We fought to protect the right of counties to administer local elections. And we fought back against the Trump administration's attempt to insert themselves, not just in Fulton, but also in DeKalb. I guess they decided they better leave DeKalb. So what I'm going to do as governor is to make sure local boards of elections remain independent and outside of the purview or influence of those who seek to turn elections. Look, the issue in Fulton County wasn't about 2020. It's about 2026 and 2028. And so what we have to do today, and people say, well, what can we do to change how elections, state election board? Let me tell you what you can do. Go vote. You go vote. I tell people, start planning now. Go to your wardrobe, start planning what you're gonna wear. But we have to go and vote in November, and we're going to take this state back. I have no doubt. As your next governor, I will stand strong, as I always have, against unnecessary, unethical, and politicized interference. Thank you.
Derek Jackson.
So this is another, because that raid took place in my district, right there in Union City. Several hundred boxes of our information. And we do not know where those 700 boxes are right now. That's a problem. So as your governor, I would do the same thing that I did as a commander, right? To the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. A lot of folks continue to talk about that they're going to take Trump to court. Where in 2020, I introduced not one, but two bills. One to remove him off the ballot, right? Because if you cannot maintain your oath against the people, that's a problem. But the other one I did against a fake elector that's currently running for governor that say he's going to be Trump 2.0. But it's going to be interesting because a billionaire just got in. He said he's going to be Trump 2.0. So they got to figure that out. But as your governor and as the commander-in-chief, I will protect your rights, voting rights, civil rights, because there was a time in this country someone that looks like me could not vote. And that's a problem. And so when that happened in my district, I took it personal because I'm the only one that put my life on the line for 22 years to protect your rights and my rights, and that's voting rights and civil rights and all the other rights. Thank you.
Olu Brown.
So we'll fully fund local election boards so they can ignore the theater and protect the ballot. As your governor, I'll do what I've always done as a leader, is create a wall between the chaos and stability. And we'll also make sure that we're not intimidated. It's one single word, it's courage. As a governor, if you have the courage to stand up to Trump, if you have the courage to stand up, to simply happen again. I also want to say, as a former faith leader, we started a church called Impact Church in East Point, Georgia, and we only had 25 people, and we bought this warehouse, 76,000 square feet, 10 acres of land. It was blighted to the community, and a lot of people thought we were just building a church, but it was much more than a church. That is one of the largest congregations in the state of Georgia. It became one of the fastest growing in the United States of America. But do you know what else it is? It's a voting precinct. It's a place that helped many of these folks that I'm running against get elected. That's what I've done my whole life. I've made a way for other people. I've made the difference. I've led with courage. And it's never been about me. It's always been about the people. And that's what I will do as your next governor.
Jason Estevez.
So we have to be clear that what Donald Trump is doing is he's destroying our country, he's destroying our democracy, and he's destroying Georgia's economy. And make no mistake that the FBI raid works to do that. And what we can't do is be silent. What we can't do is not fight back. Because with bullies, you have to meet them head on. So as governor, what I will do is I will stand tall, both literally and figuratively, and fight back against the Trump administration. And you do that by suing the hell out of the Trump administration. And it makes no sense that the governor and the attorney general has not done anything with the legal process to protect your rights. But the other thing that I will do is I will use every legislative tool in my toolbox to ensure that we protect your right to vote at the federal and the state level. I've already been doing that work as a state senator. I was on the ethics committee where I fought on the front lines to defend against Republican attacks on your voting rights. And as governor, I'm not only going to fight to protect them, I'm going to fight to expand them, making sure that we're expanding the number of precincts, that we have same-day voter registration, and that we make it easier to exercise your right to vote.
Rira Roman.
It is deeply important that when we hear, for example, a question like what will happen if Donald Trump cancels elections, our reaction is he cannot do that. And I know you're thinking, well, of course, he's going to completely change the rules, but it is important to remember what the truth is at a time. We'll treat it like a random commodity they can just get rid of whenever they want. Because here's the reality. We're talking about what we're going to do as governor if we are to be elected, if Trump is going to do this again. My concern is this year's election. And what are we doing to prepare for it? That's why we have been so laser focused on building a volunteer army that we are training to, for example, understand what to do if they interact with ICE as they're canvassing the door. Those are real considerations we need to be having in this moment. But in addition to that, are we also mobilizing our volunteers and educating them on how to be poll watchers, on how to be poll monitors, how to actually show up for their communities and help them protect their rights? This is not a question for next year. This is a question for right now. And it is one that I urge every single person to take seriously. Engage with your local organizations, ones that have been doing this work for a very long time. Get trained up. Work with your neighbors and your friends, even the neighbors that y'all don't like. I get it. But it is so deeply important that we are working with our neighbors right now to protect our democracy because, yes, we do have legislative tools. Yes, we have legal tools. But in addition to that, we have to be prepared now. But I will tell you, as governor, just like back in the day when those segregationist governors used the National Guard to keep segregation, we can do the same to protect our polling places, and we need to be prepared to do that.
Next, Jeff Duncan.
I'm often asked why I pushed back so hard during the 2020 election as lieutenant governor. I could have just sat back and let it happen and blame everybody else for it. But I pushed back because Donald Trump was trying to lie, cheat, and steal, and all of his followers, to try to steal millions of Democrat votes. And it was worth every minute of it, even though our family continued to feel death threats every time Donald Trump tweeted at us, even though our kids were getting picked on at school, even though our friends wouldn't talk to us in many places. It was the right thing to do. We've all said this. Look, I don't need to convince this room that the FBI raid had nothing to do with the 2020 election. We've litigated, relitigated, counted, verified, certified, hand counted. We've done everything. That election was real and accurate. This is all about sowing seeds of doubt in these 2026 midterms. That's what this is all about. This is about dropping enough nuggets to the MAGA base to fan the flames of conspiracy theories again, and we can't let it happen. We've got to use every tool at our disposal to push back. We need a governor willing and able to stand up right now to tell Donald Trump to stop, get out of our state, stop messing with our elections. This is our election. But this is about, Donald Trump's game is all about fear and intimidation. You know that. These ICE raids, these have nothing to do with policy. These have to do with fear and domination and intimidation. Literally stoking fear in communities and households and churches and businesses and industries. We all deserve better. We need to push back. As governor, we will not use state assets for any ICE raids, National Guard troops, and we will use the courts to our full force to push back on Donald Trump or the MAGA crowd. Thank you.
Keisha Lance Bottoms.
My Congressman John Lewis said that his greatest fear was that we would wake up one day and our democracy would be gone. As someone who was born just after the civil rights movement in America, I had never thought that I would experience this moment in my lifetime. But what we know is this: every generation will have its battles to fight, and this is the battle of our generation. To protect the right to vote that John Lewis described as precious, almost sacred. To make sure that our poll workers are protected. To make sure that their personal information is protected. So that people like Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman don't have to fear for their lives just so that they can work, so that we can have the right to vote. Also, preparing backup plans for our polling places. In the event of disruption, making sure that we have backup plans in place so that people can exercise their right to vote. And then lastly, the power of the courts. It doesn't always look like it's going to be easy or even possible, but we have to do all that we can do to protect that sacred right. That means taking Donald Trump to court every single opportunity that we have and showing up in record numbers so that there will be no questions of the closeness of the election that begins in 67 days in this state.
We will now move on to the audience questions. Candidates, you have 60 seconds to answer each question. I will only say the question once. If you need it repeated, please let me know. And also, let's stay mindful of the time. Starting with Ms. Bottoms. The first audience question is from Jason Barnes. Can candidates explain their field strategy and how will they galvanize that 1.3 million people that sat at home? Ms. Bottoms?
Yes, thank you for the question, Jason. Jason, I'm fortunate that I have 90% name recognition across the state. Right now, I'm polling at 40%, which is more than all of the candidates combined. I have worked across the state to earn votes. It means that we have to encourage people not to choose the couch, that we have to knock on doors like we did in 2020. I work with a coalition called Battleground Georgia, where we targeted voters who did not show up in the general election to show up in January during the runoff. If I'm communicating with people like my mother, who is here today, we're going to knock on her door. We're going to call on the telephone. If I'm communicating with people like my daughter, who is here today, almost eligible to vote, we're going to put it on TikTok, Instagram, and everything in between. We're not taking anyone for granted.
Olu Brown?
So for us, it's a grassroots strategy, and we leave no one unnoticed, or we leave no door not knocked on or handshaken from someone. So the opportunity that we have for this strategy is to reach all of Georgia. I'm grateful to be here in Fulton and DeKalb County for this gathering tonight. But when I travel outside in middle Georgia and South Georgia and coastal Georgia, one of the things people say to me very often, Olu, I'm glad you're here. Don't forget about us, and please come back. And so that's our campaign strategy. We will go through every corner of Georgia. I told you earlier, I started one of the largest faith communities in the state of Georgia with just 25 people. And we had from octogenarians to teenagers. And that took a lot of work, and it took a lot of relationship building. And we still have those relationships throughout the state of Georgia. So we're locking into those relationships with people in the academic community, people in the business community, the civic community, and even religious community. And we will win this thing. Why? Because we're reaching all of Georgia.
Jeff Duncan?
I meet millions of Georgians right where they're at. They're worried about the same three things I said when I opened: the affordability crisis, the healthcare crisis, and the Donald Trump crisis. We repeat that over and over and over in every room we walk into, and we give a plan for each one of those issues. We don't try to be everybody, right? We can agree to disagree. We can have conversations. We can turn chaos into conversations, but we need to stay focused, and we need to win. This room probably agrees on 90% of the issues. We want better public education. We want early childhood education. We want better we want to expand Medicaid. We want common sense gun legislation. We want to protect our natural resources. But none of that will be a priority if we get another second place trophy. We've got to win. I think we've caught a lot of folks off guard. I was in this race only 4.5 months and raised $1.15 million. Some of that story was we got over 11,000 contributions from all 50 states on our website. Not because we're running a national ad program, but because Georgia, the rest of the country realizes Georgia is important to not only our election, but to their election.
Jason Estevez?
Yeah, well, look, if name ID and polling matter, then most of the governors who have been elected would never have been elected. And the reality is that Georgians don't elect celebrities, they elect people who do the work. And the way we do the work is by knocking on doors all across the state and not being afraid to go into red rooms just like we go into blue rooms. And here's the important thing. It's talking to them about the issues that they care about and giving them something to vote for, not just something to vote against. And for too long, Democrats have been telling you what you should be voting against. I'm here to tell you what you should be voting for. That's why I'm going all across the state talking about health, wealth, and opportunity. Because it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, you care about making sure that you and your family have access to the health insurance and the health care that you need, that you have opportunities to keep and grow the money in your pockets, and most importantly, that our children and our grandchildren have more opportunities than what we've had. If we crisscross the state with that message, I can guarantee you that we're going to build that multi-generational, multiracial coalition that it's going to take to win not only the primary, but the general election in November of 2026.
Derek Jackson?
Listen, I think the question was around grassroots campaign. And what we have done in the last 8, 9 months since we've been campaigning, we've been meeting citizens where they are, simply to tell them, I hear you, I see you, and I'm with you. We traveled 5,200 miles in the last 6 months. And so a lot of folks are going to tell you about polls, where there are 8 million citizens in Georgia that are registered to vote of the population of 11 million. And so when you see a poll of just 1,000 people, don't believe the polls. Folks are just tuning in. Heck, last week when the billionaire got in, folks started calling me and say, I didn't know you were a billionaire. Because the billionaire goes by Action Jackson, a call sign that I used for 22 years in the United States Navy. And they also use Rick Jackson. They're like, was that Derek Jackson? So name ID could be important, but it's not. Will we show up and see you and hear you and know you by name? This is about relationships. My mother was born and raised in Burke County. And then my grandfather had 32 kids. So if you're a Jackson, Waynesboro, Swainsboro, Statesboro, we might be related. So name ID is important, right? But let me be honest and clear right now for a second. The real question is not how much money you can raise, because a billionaire had 2 Super Bowl commercials that cost $8 million for 30 seconds. So it's not about polls, and it's not about how much money you can raise. I can't raise money right now because the Republicans made it such, while I'm in the legislature, me and Representative Roman, we can't raise money.
Cat can.
Right? So
Complicated.
Oh, well, legally.
Legally, yes, you can. Actually, yes.
Myself. Let me just speak for
Yes,
myself.
you can.
We cannot raise money while we're in the legislature, right?
This is getting interesting.
And Jeff knows this, right?
Actually, it's because of their LCs. Anyway,
So the bottom line is,
I'll wait.
the bottom line is, this is not about polls. This is not about how much money you can raise when a billionaire just jumped in the race and now he's #1 on the Republican side. The real question is, who's the most qualified to fight against Donald Trump and to make sure that we get the things that we can deliver, not what we put on our websites, but the bills that we've been introducing the last 10 years.
Candidates, make sure you respect the time. Next, Rua Roman.
So there's a reason not a single candidate is going to be able to answer this question directly, and it's because none of them have built out a field program yet. We have. We have been running a statewide, or as close to a statewide field program as we can get since November. In fact, we've been canvassing in Savannah, Athens, Atlanta, Norcross, and Smyrna since November. The only time we were interrupted was when we had an ice and snowstorm. And why is that? Because when we talk about second place trophies, we have the numbers. In 2024, for every Trump voter that we got, we lost 4 of our own, 3 of them to the couch. And it was based off of the same advice that we keep getting from the same consultants whose livelihoods depend on them never admitting they made a mistake. And that's why we started Field First. I am so deeply honored that over 3,000 people have went on our website and filled out a volunteer form saying they are interested in volunteering for us. And we've been able to deploy a lot of those, but we need to deploy more. That's why we also launched in Warner Robins and Columbus last week. But we also, money does matter. And that's why we want to make sure that that field program is well resourced, because here's the reality. The governor endorsed against me in 2024 for the first time ever. They threw everything they could, spent $250,000, which is a lot for a state house race. Y'all, we did 2 points better. We had some crossover voters, yes, but it was because we stood for something, not just against something. And we were able to buck national trends as a result of it. Thank you.
Michael Thurmond.
My call to action has been boots on the ground. I have attended over 130 events across the state of Georgia. The great majority of those events occurred outside of 285. What am I doing? We're building on a network that has existed now over the years. When I was elected to the Georgia House of Representatives, I was the only African American elected to serve a majority white district. When I was elected Labor Commissioner 3 times statewide, I became the first African American ever to win a non-incumbent statewide office as an African American. We will build a winning coalition of all races, colors, and creeds because I believe in Georgia. And I don't need anybody in Washington to try to tell me how he is going to make America great again. America is, always has been, and always will be the greatest nation on the face of this earth. I still believe in the American dream, and we are going to rise to the occasion and cast our votes for a new vision in November 2026.
The next audience question is from Renee Pogue on Zoom. There has been significant water and pollution in the South River since the construction of the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center, directly and negatively affecting residents in South DeKalb. How do you plan on addressing that? We will begin with Michael Thurmond.
Well, first of all, the Public Safety Training Center is built on land that's owned by the city of Atlanta. As a result of that, that land, and when a public agency builds, they are not under the authority of the local government where the facility is located. What we did do is put into the agreement that Mayor Dickens and the City Council signed is an agreement that we will continue to monitor to see what, if anything, is filtering into the South River. As the CEO of DeKalb County, I invested $1.2 billion in upgrading our neglected, outdated water and sewer system. We cut sewer spills by 64.5% during the last 4 years of my administration. We continue to invest and will invest to ensure that we protect the environment. We reduce the spills, we reduce overflows into our communities, and that work must and will continue.
Derek Jackson.
Thank you for the question. Out of the 180 districts in the House, District 68, my district, is the fastest growing district in the last 10 years. We witnessed nearly $3 billion of economic development, $400 million in infrastructure improvements, and created 30,000 jobs. So when you think about growth, you got to do it in the most meticulous, strategic way. And you have to start with hearing the voice of the people. I just introduced a bill to put a moratorium pause for 3 years against data centers. And it's the most comprehensive bill because it's 6 pages long. See, because when I was with GE, one of the things that we had to do was around data centers. And so I know data centers consume a lot of energy. I know data centers are going to consume a lot of water consumption. But I also know, because of these data centers, 93 of them going up right now. 93. So your electricity bill, your utility bills will about to go up, right? And we also have some movie studios who are about to convert those movie studios to data centers. And so I'm going to be on the front end when you start talking about water and sewage and utilities and growth and economic development. You look at my 6-page bill that I just introduced to place that moratorium against data center. That's the kind of governor I will be, to make sure we start with the voice of the people first. Thank you.
Olu Brown.
So I've learned as a leader, it's about one word, it's accountability. And so as your next governor, I'll hold corporations, I'll hold leaders, and I will hold individuals accountable for pollution, overuse, and misuse of Georgia as it relates to our ecosystem. I'll do everything I can to keep as one of our highest priorities protecting Georgia's ecosystem. That's the water, that's the air, and any other form of environment that helps keep us healthy and helps keep us safe. One of the first debates we had was in coastal Georgia, and that was one of the concerns there. As governor, we're not only looking at one area of Georgia, but we're looking at the ecosystem in North Georgia in the mountains. We're looking at the ecosystem here in Metro. We're looking at the ecosystem in Middle Georgia, South Georgia, and coastal Georgia. Why? Because I'm not running to be your chief executive officer in the traditional form, but your chief empathy officer. And Georgia's ecosystem is one of my highest priorities.
Jason Estevez.
Yeah, so I think it's important to note that the process for the construction of the training center was deeply flawed and was unacceptable, frankly. And the process started when former Mayor Bottoms was in office and when former CEO Thurman were in office. And many folks warned these leaders about the impacts to the environment, and those concerns were ignored. What we need are leaders who will always keep the health and well-being of our communities in mind and listen to the concerns of those communities that are impacted. As governor, what I will make sure is I will hold governments and companies, frankly, accountable for protecting our communities and protecting our environment. I will appoint heads of agencies that put people over industry, and I will make sure that we stop the scourge of data centers that are popping up all across the state of Georgia.
Rua Roman.
Y'all, I am running for governor because, frankly, I'm tired of being failed by people on both sides of the aisle, okay? And I say this with deep respect to my opponents who either, if they were in the legislature, voted in support of Cop City or voted to approve it in their own jurisdictions. I think it's important to be honest. I think leaders should admit when they did something wrong. And we have yet to hear that from a single person responsible for that project that was placed on land promised to that community as a park. We forget this, but that land was promised to that community as a park. Now those homes, their insurance rates have gone up, the values of their properties have gone down, and when the legislature brought forward a resolution that equated the petition signature collectors to domestic terrorists, there were only 5 of us in the House that were willing to say no. I think we deserve leaders willing to stand up when it's hard and point out when we are failing them. We ignored over 100,000 petition signatures when it came to that project. It was one of the largest civic participation projects in an off-term cycle that we have had in our history. And we didn't even give them a vote. And where did that start? It didn't start the year Cop City came up. It didn't start the year that the Bitter Southerner covered it and wrote a beautiful article about that land. It started before that. And that's literally why I'm running. I am tired of leaders failing us. And I'm tired of them not taking responsibility for that failure. And as for data centers, y'all, I feel like I need to say this, but if you look at the bill numbers, there's a reason mine is lower because it was there first. We are fighting data centers as much as we can. Republicans just passed a bill that does nothing to protect people, and they're trying to claim that it is a win. It is not. So if you've been fighting on this issue, especially on data centers,
I
hope
hate to
keep
stop
going.
you.
Thank
We've
you.
gone
I
significantly
got you.
over.
Done.
Okay, thank you. Jeff Duncan.
One of the reasons why I'm sitting here as a proud Democrat is because of the Republicans' ignorance to embrace climate change and to actually admit that it's real. And I think this is another issue for us as Democrats to really gain ground on and really talk about. If you go to Savannah, they talk about sunny day flooding and beach erosion. If you go to South Georgia, they talk about lithium mining in swamp areas. If you talk about urban areas, rivers and streams being polluted. We need to work hard to give real teeth to the Georgia EPD, to give them those tools and those mechanisms that actually hold people accountable for breaking the law. I think also it's important for us to know this. I was talking to Mayor Dickens months ago, and he mentioned this fact that only 1.6% of the state's budget is actually spent inside the city of Atlanta. Right? Most urban cities, capital cities and states spend nearly 10% of the city's budget comes from the state. We need to start investing more in infrastructure, transportation, and give our cities the opportunity to succeed. Thank you.
Keisha Lance Bottoms.
So I know the original question was about the environmental impact, but I do want to address something on the Public Safety Center. We have to invest in public safety. That is a reality of our communities. I'm very proud as the mayor of Atlanta to have given our police officers the largest pay increase in the history of Atlanta. Our firefighters, the largest pay increase in 50 years. Our workers, taking them up to $15 an hour living wage. We have to make the investment if we want the return. As it relates to the environmental issues, there is a lack of investment from the state in infrastructure across this state, not just in South DeKalb County, but also in coastal Georgia, where the federal government committed money to help mitigate flooding. The city of Savannah committed money to help mitigate flooding. The federal government removed that money. The state will have to stand in the gap until we get a reasonable person in the White House who believes that climate change is not a hoax, who believes that pollution is not a hoax, who believes that affordability across the state is not a hoax.
Okay. Thank you for the audience questions. And also thank you, candidates, for overall sticking with our time limits. We will now begin candidate closing statements. Starting with Mr. Estevez, please provide us with your closing statements. Remember, you have 60 seconds.
Yes, and I want to thank the Fulton and DeKalb Democrats for holding this amazing event. Let's give them a huge round of applause. Look, my name is Jason Estevez, and I'm running to give the hardworking people of this state a fair shot. It's what I've done my entire life, whether it's been as a social studies teacher, a school board member, or a state senator. And as your governor, I'm going to focus in on lowering the cost of living, expanding access to health care, fighting for our democracy, and investing in our public education system. If you are tired of the old politics, the politics that have continuously failed the hardworking people of this state, then I encourage you to join my campaign. Follow us on social media at Jason Estevez. Visit our website, jasonestevez.com. And I know that if we organize together, if we work together, and most importantly, when we vote together, we will not only win in November, we're going to change the face of leadership in Georgia for generations to come. Thank you so much for having me.
Derek Jackson.
You know, tonight, well, first of all, thank you for being here, taking time out of your busy schedule. Tonight, you heard a lot. You heard a lot of rhetoric, and you heard a few results. I'm the only candidate up here that's qualified to be commander-in-chief. Period in the story. I'm the only candidate to be the CEO because GE taught me how to become a CEO. And Georgia is a big business, $79 billion. Tonight you heard a lot, individuals talking about that they're gonna not quit and fight. But you got a senator up here that quit and cost us money when he quit. He's not in the Senate right now. You got a senator up here that did Senate Bill 244 that's costing Fulton County citizens money. It's the Trump bill he signed on to. So we got to make sure that as you examine the seven of us, right? Those who live in glass houses should not throw stones. And so I am running to become your 84th governor. You can go to my website, votederekjackson.org. And what's on my website has been there for 10 years because I continue to fight the same things that I've been fighting for the last 10 years under that gold dome. I will never quit on you. I never quit. And I will never say one thing in Buckhead and something else in Bankhead. I'm going to be your governor.
Yes, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Jackson. Olu Brown.
Well, thank you, Fulton and DeKalb, and I look forward to meeting each of you after we conclude, and hello to those who are watching online. I remember being in elementary school, reading the Constitution and adding up the years that I needed to be to run for office. I am living my dream as a public servant, and that's been my whole career. 25 years ago, I packed my Honda Civic after leaving Texas and pointed it on Interstate 20, and 12 hours later, I got off in the Atlanta University Center to continue my education. And now, 25 years later, I'm running for governor. I'm running because I want a Georgia where every kid has the possibility that I've had over my past 25 years here in this state. I'm running for governor because we can do something about education. We can do something about healthcare. We can do something about equality for the rights of women. And most importantly, we can make Georgia fair and healthy for everyone. We've got a $14 billion surplus. The lie is there isn't enough. The truth is there is more than enough. But if you have a leader who sees, if you have a leader who cares, and if you have a leader who has courage, we can make a difference for all of Georgia. Go to oluforga.com. I need your support.
Michael Thurmond.
Thank you so much, DeKalb and Fulton Democrats. Thank you all for coming. Let me tell you, I've learned something in life, and that is you underpromise and overperform. Judge me not on my promises, but on my performance. Judge me, and you know when times are tough, I won't quit, I won't give up, I won't give in. Look, I'm not the perfect candidate. I'm not the youngest. I ain't the tallest.
I'm not either.
And I'm not the most beautiful.
Hey, that's
But let me tell you what I am. I'm the best qualified candidate to be your next governor. And if you will elect me governor, I promise you we will build a winning coalition. We will build a coalition of those who want to expand health care and create more jobs and a better public education system. I need your help. I need you to believe just one more time that we can get this job done, and I will not let you down.
Rua Roman.
Thank you to everyone who came out tonight and to those who are watching online. I also want to give a shout out to our volunteers who have been phone banking, because we phone bank every Thursday. So if you're ever interested in joining us, go to ruaforgeorgia.com and sign up to volunteer. Oftentimes we're told that people are so grateful for a campaign like ours that is speaking about the issues that people care about with conviction and sincerity and authenticity. But oftentimes they go, we're just not sure about electability. So let's talk about electability. Like I said, in 2024, for every Trump voter we got, we lost 4 of our own, 3 of them to the couch. And not only that, we have one of the youngest populations in the country with a median age of 37 years old. There's also over 100,000 registered Muslim voters with one of the lowest turnout rates of any group in our state. There is so much opportunity. And in a once-in-a-generation election cycle, we do ourselves a massive disservice by giving up preemptively right as we're about to win. Because we know this works. Before Stacey ran in 2018, we were losing by 20 to 10 points. And so I want to urge all of you to not forget the right direction. Because and I want to finish with this really quickly. We got really close and won because we door knocked, we mobilized people, and we had an authentic message. We're the only campaign currently doing that. I ask for your support, and I ask for your belief, because now is the time to be brave, and now is the time to flip our state. Thank you.
Jeff Duncan.
You've heard a lot of really good ideas up here tonight, and I genuinely mean this. I hope one of us is the next governor. I'm a little biased as to which one of us, but I genuinely hope one of us is the next governor. You know, I'm often asked what motivates me, right? This has been a difficult journey for me and my family, and it really comes back to a family motto that Brooke and I are raising our 3 boys with. It's doing the right thing will never be the wrong thing. And in the heat of the moment, when Donald Trump was tweeting at us and armed guards were outside our house, and as I said, kids couldn't go to school and death threats were coming, and it was a rough patch of time. One of my sons walked down and took the wooden coaster that we have that saying on in our house and said, "Hey, Dad, doing the right thing will never be the wrong thing. Stay strong." We know the right thing to do as Georgians. We know this is our opportunity to win, and a second place trophy is not going to be good enough. This is not an election about Republicans versus Democrats. This election is about good versus evil. If you make me your nominee, I will beat the brakes off Burt Jones, and we'll put a Democrat in the governor's mansion for the first time in 30 years. Thank you.
Keisha Lance Bottoms.
Thank you to the organizers of tonight's event and to all of you all for taking the time to become more informed. I was asked, why am I running for governor? For me, it was waking up the day after the last presidential election, praying about what it meant to me, my community, to my family, to our state as a whole. As I prayed with my husband, Derek, who is here, and talked about it with our 4 children, 3 of the 4 agreed. that I should offer myself as a candidate for governor. This is the fight of our lives. I've fought against Donald Trump and I've won. As mayor of Atlanta, I closed our jail to ICE during the family separation crisis, ending a multi-year contract. I also pulled our officers from a federal task force because Trump would not allow them to wear body cameras. It resulted in a policy change across this country. I don't have to talk about dreaming about fighting against Donald Trump. I've done it and I have won, and that is what I will do as governor. I will fight on behalf of all of you. I'm proud of my service as mayor, of my service as a judge, as my service as a member of Atlanta City Council, and I would be honored to serve as your next governor.
Thank you to all of the candidates for showing up tonight. You made it through 2 hours of questions, and you should be very proud of yourself.
Yep.
Good job, Rose.
Congratulations and good luck on the campaign trail. Thank you to the audience. It has been a pleasure. Before everyone goes, we have one last thing just before you go as I wrap this up, but we have one more voice you'll hear. But thank you again to the audience. It has been a pleasure to serve as your moderator this evening. I want to thank DeKalb and Fulton Dems for having me out, especially Hillary Lynn for putting this amazing show together. I would now like to welcome Chase, still the Vice Chair of Fulton County Democratic Committee, to the stage. Mr. Vice Chair.
Hi, new city council member. Hi,
Hear me? Can y'all hear me? All right. Good evening. Thank you, candidates. As the first vice chair of the Fulton County Democrats, I know some of you very well. Thank you for your lifetimes of service, and thank you to our moderator, Summer. You did a fantastic job. Thank you so much. Thank you to the DeKalb Special Events Committee, the executive boards of both DeKalb and Fulton County Democrats. There's a handful of Fulton and DeKalb elected officials here in the room. I want to call them out, and sorry if I didn't see everybody, but we have DeKalb Commissioner Dr. LaDenna Bolton, we have State Senator Rashawn Kemp, Representative Longtran, School Board Member Whitney McGinnis, School Board Member Andrew Ziffer, College Park Mayor Pro Tem Joe Karn, and my Fulton County Commissioner Mo Ivory. The candidates we heard from tonight are ready to lead, but they cannot win the state without the 2.5 million voters that are in DeKalb and Fulton County. And they talked about going across the state, but they all know it to be true that DeKalb and Fulton County is what's going to put them in the governor's mansion. 2 bits of actions before you leave tonight. Number 1, check your My Voter page. Make sure your vote hasn't been purged. Tell your family and friends to do the same thing. And then also, there's QR codes on the way out. Send a couple bucks to the Fulton and the DeKalb Dems to put on more events like this, more forums, and to increase our field work over the next 9 months. And now I'm going to pass it back to Hillary. Thank you, Hillary, who's the main orchestrator of tonight.
Thank you so much, Chase. Thank you to all the candidates and the volunteers at this forum. On behalf of our team and everyone else in the audience for joining us tonight. Hold on, everyone else tonight. Can you all hear me? Okay, great. A huge thank you to Ms. Summer Jackson for being our moderator this evening. Our DeKalb Dems Chair, Ms. Brandy Weiss, Fulton County Dems Chair, Kayla Garthis, and the Vice Chair, Chase Bell, Young Democrats of DeKalb Chair, Chris Andrews, and our incredible production team tonight. Our Zoom operator, our technical support, and our timekeeper, Ms. Leona Perry in the front. While we are volunteers, we present events like this to inform the citizens in the community. We do have expenses and we ask for your financial support. Please consider a small amount of monthly or reoccurring donations to power Democratic wins here in DeKalb and Fulton County. Please check your voter registration to make sure it is up to date and note some of these important dates. Monday, April 20th is the deadline to register to vote for the primary election in May. Early voting is from April 27th through May 15th. Election day is May 19th. If a runoff does happen, that will take place on June 16th. A quick reminder, we do have our Blue Ballot reception happening on Sunday, April 26th at the Fernbank Museum. Early bird tickets are on sale right now. Please join us for an unforgettable evening. As a reminder, a viewing of this will be on YouTube. And please visit DeKalb Dems and Fulton County Dems website to discover ways to engage. I thank everyone for coming out. I want to give a special shout out to my sorority sisters of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. Thank you all for attending. Also, my candidate coordinators from Clark Atlanta University that's over here on the side. I thank you all for participating and volunteering at this wonderful event. And all of the Greeks in the audience, I know there are a few Greeks, Deltas, Kappas, and Alphas here on the stage. So I really appreciate, and there's a Sigma photographer out in the audience. So I got to give everybody a shout out. Hey, that's my fraternity brother. So I got to give everyone a shout out. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Be safe and have a good night.